Today we're going to do an easy to paint Necron. So first off, silver. We start with lead belcher first, which is a colour which covers the entire miniature. Next we're using iron breaker. I'm using an old brush where the bristles are spread out, and I've removed most of the paint. So as you can see, look, there's not a huge amount there. And going over it nice and fast like this, and it will pick out edges. As you can see, it's a very fast process. One of the benefits of painting it like this is, one, it will catch the edges, but two, certain areas where there's some depth which you can't easily get to this method will therefore create shade. So inside the chest there, because there's the weapon there, that will stay dark. Or the inside here will stay dark. Even if you're not too fussy on how much work you do on the inside of the leg here, that will also stay dark. Next, you want to make sure that all the water, after you've cleaned it, all the water is out of your brush. So go over your hand a few times just to make sure you can't see any water. So the next colour is going to be Rune Fang. And again, if I put it over my hand, there's a bit there, but you're not seeing a huge amount. So again, go over it nice and quick. We're starting to get a nice shine to the robot now. Next, using Necron compound. This is a very easy way to paint Necrons. It's very fast. In fact, you're painting a Necron in about 5 to 10 minutes. At this point, it's taken about 5 to 10 minutes to get this finished. The main things to remember: you want a very small amount of paint on your brush. You want to hold your brush right at the end, which helps you to get that fast speed going. And when you're going for the process of one layer to the next, make sure you, after you've cleaned your brush, you get all the water out of your brush before applying the next lot of paint. You could now, if you wanted to, apply null oil, and by applying that, it will make it dark in the recesses, but it's also going to make the entire miniature darker. So if you want the standard look of a Necron, I would just leave it like that myself. Makes it nice and bright and very easy to paint an entire army. Next, for your ice necrons, we need some super glue, some fishing line, and it doesn't have to be expensive fishing line, it could be something very cheap, and some cutters. So first off, we're going to cut off a few pieces of fishing line, and because the fishing line is transparent, to find something dark you can put it on so you can see it. So one of your bases will do just fine. You may also want to use some tweezers because these are a bit on the small side. And what we're going to do now is we're going to glue some of these pieces onto your Necron. Best places I would suggest things like your elbows, maybe off the chin, could be off the hand here, or off this cable, off the end here, even off the back there could be a good place. To do this, you only need a very small amount of glue. So I did it off camera, but basically what I did is I applied the glue somewhere else, and then I can get that small piece of fishing line on the end of my tweezers and I can dip it into the glue and therefore get a small amount, where if you're squeezing it out of the pot, you know you're going to end up getting a lot more than you need. You can see there's one of them, another one off the chin. I've also got one on the back at the moment. Now I realise this doesn't look very good at the moment, but it's not finished. But at this point, if you feel some of these pieces of fishing line are a bit too long, you can always cut some down in length. Make them a little bit shorter. Now we want to leave it for a while just to make sure that the glue is fully dry. To help emphasise the cold element we want to create, I've picked a very light blue. This is an old paint, but it gives you an idea of the colour. And we're going to use this for the areas where with most Necrons you tend to see them looking green. So this piece and those pieces here. I've thinned down a little bit of Hoff blue with some Lamy medium, just so I can add a little bit of extra colour to it. But I want to try and keep it so there's not a lot of colour to these areas, because I want to try and make it look more as if the robot's not moving, it's not active, not functional. But we want to give it a little bit of colour, don't we? Next for our miniature, we need this extra heavy gel gloss. And I would start off with the places where you've put the fishing line first. As well as these larger icicles that are now on the model, I've also put some in areas where there's some joints to try and give this look, but the ice is starting to freeze the joints up. There's a bit on the shoulders as well. Next, what I'm going to do is take it outside and spray it with Purity Seal to give it a slightly frosty look. After spraying it to make it look slightly more frosty, I painted the eyes initially with corn red. I then used the flash kits to put pupils in, and then Agrax Earthshade to go around the outside. And you can see from that how the ice now looks a lot dark, more, colder. Next, for the base, I'm going to mix some sand, and this is very fine sand. This is like builder sand. Although I have this, which you can use for doing your snow bases, this is basically £5, and I think that's rather expensive really when you consider for the price of about £10 you can buy a big bag of builder's sand, which is so big it would fill up about 6 ice cream tubs full of sand. So it would probably last you your entire lifespan of being a hobbyist. And all you need to do really is apply some white paint into the sand. So obviously you're having to pay for your paint, but then the paint's only around £2.50, so the paint itself is half the price of what it costs you to buy the sand, the snow effect. This is about the right consistency, and not quite slushy, but almost. It leaves you a nice texture to the top of your base. Next, you want to clean the edge of your base. You don't want that overspill. You could, if you wanted, leave it at that point. However, I want to go a little bit further, so I'm going to use some snow flock. Now, because the paint's wet, we can apply the snow flock straight on. But we obviously don't want any of this flock, which is going to be wet from the paint, to end up back in the tub. So what I would suggest is we leave it like that for a while, and we remove the excess a bit later on when the paint's had time to dry.